All members, please report to the floor of the House. All members. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. We will begin our day as we do each day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 61st House District, Representative Roger Bruce. Representative Bruce.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to be able to bring one of the pastors from my church, Impact United Methodist Church. And our pastor today is a graduate from Emory Candler, and he has his master's degree in divinity. He is also an individual that found late in life that he needed to spread the word of God. He spent 25 years in corporate America, and then just one day he woke up and he said he got hit with the Spirit and said, time to leave corporate America and go do the real work of the Lord. And his role over at the church, it's a very interesting church in that it does not fall into the normal mode of feeling like you're just going and you're under pressure to go to church. You actually wake up in the morning and say, I really want to go. And then while you're there, you say, I really want to be here. And then when it's over with, you say, I think I'll stay for another one. And it's just a very nice, welcoming environment. And he's part of the leadership that makes that happen. So without further ado, please help me and welcome Orlando Evans as our pastor of the day.
Thank you, Speaker Bruce, for the wonderful introduction. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to stand before you today. I invite you to journey with me to 1 Peter. If we look at chapter 5, verse 6, we would find the following. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you in due time. For the few moments that I have before you today, I challenge you with this thought. Is it time? Is it time? Let us pray. Lord, thank you for the opportunity to share this wonderful word with this group of leaders that are assembled here today. As we meditate upon your word, thank you for revealing truth in a way that will inspire and enrich us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I'm usually challenged, please be seated. I'm usually challenged every morning, waking up my son, urging him to get out of bed, and ushering him off to school. But last Friday was very different because it was the day of the 4th grade field trip, and they were headed to Rock Eagle Park. While I woke him up 1 hour earlier than usual, he didn't resist like he did the day before. Instead, he looked at me with expectation and he asked the question, is it time? His question seemed to ask, is it time to move from my place of comfort and go to a place that I've never been? Is it time to rise from my place of rest and journey into the unknown? And is it time to change my normal routine and embrace a new adventure? As he anticipated the beginning of something special, he asked, is it time? In today's text, the Apostle Peter was speaking to a group of leaders who had endured a season of difficulty, and they were anticipating a brighter day. He encouraged them to move forward by tending to the community that they were called and assigned to serve. As they exercised oversight, they were to do so without compulsion or desire for selfish gain, and they were to do so with willingness and eagerness to benefit others. He also instructed them to serve one another and humble themselves under the leadership of God by exercising discipline, staying alert, and remaining faithful. In doing so, they would experience the grace of God that restores us, strengthens and supports us, and establishes us for a season that is yet to come. By God's grace, these leaders were exalted, but only in due time. I believe that this continues to be true for many of us today. As we remain steadfast, as we humbly submit to the Lord during seasons of challenge, we can prayerfully expect for God to lead us somewhere new. So let's continue to be faithful. Let's continue to listen to the voice of God when we ask the Lord the question, is it time? I invite you to join me standing in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for blessing our great state with this amazing group of leaders as they continue to navigate through the complexities of their honorable assignment. Please help them to do so with discernment, clarity, and godly wisdom. May their hearts and minds continue to be led by your Spirit, and let your will prevail. As our representatives humbly submit to you, may your favor cover them like a blanket, sheltering them from hurt, harm, danger, and exalting them during the season that's been appointed by you. May your grace be the compass that continues to guide us, and may your Spirit continue to whisper to our hearts. In your holy name we pray, amen. Please join me as we pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. The chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits read the proceedings of the previous legislative day and found them to be correct.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, on order 59th moves the following be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction to bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Reports of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1132 by Representative Matthews of the 144th bill be titled an act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Cochrane.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1133 by Representative Parsons, the 44th bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions of state government.
Energy, utilities, and telecommunications.
House Bill 1134 by Representative Moore, the 95th Clark of the 108th, Hutchinson the 107th, Kennard to the 102nd, Allen the 40th, and others. A bill be titled an act to repeal the provisions of House Bill 481.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 1135 by Representative Jackson, the 64th, Hobson, the 153rd, Smiley, the 135th, Hughley, the 136th, and Bodie, the 62nd. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 4286 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to special license plates.
Motor Vehicles.
House Bill 1136 by Representative Rogers, the 10th, and Irwin of the 28th. Bill be titled an act to reincorporate and provide a new charter for the city of Baldwin.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1137 by Representative Jackson, the 128th bill be titled an act to authorize the assessment and collection of a technology fee by the State Court of Washington County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1138 by Representative Corbett of the 174th bill be titled an act to amend an act to incorporate the town of Argyle.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1139 by Representative Hughley of the 136th and Smiley of the 135th bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 913 142 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to requirements of an official legal organ.
Governmental affairs.
House Bill 1141 by Representative Jones, the 25th, Couch of the 50th, McLaren of the 51st, and Dreyer of the 59th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 6 of Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to driving on the right side of the roadway.
Motor Vehicles.
House Bill 1142 by Representative Jones, the 25th, Tanner of the 9th, Morris the 26th, Cantrell of the 22nd, and Gilligan of the 24th. Bill be titled an act to amend an act to provide for the creation of one or more community improvement districts in Forsyth County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1144 by Representative Wen of the 89th, Cantrell of the 22nd, Nix of the 69th, Oliver of the 82nd, Hutchinson the 107th, and others. Bill be entitled an act to amend Code Section 1975 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to reporting of child abuse.
Juvenile Justice.
House Bill 1145 by Representative Barton of the 5th. A bill be entitled an act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Calhoun.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Resolution 1430 by Representative Parsons, the 44th, a resolution creating the House Study Committee on Demand Site Management and Energy Use.
Energy, utilities, and telecommunications.
House Resolution 1431 by Representative Frazier, the 126th, Bruce, the 61st, Dickerson, the 113th, Evans, the 83rd, Smiley, the 135th. A resolution recognizing Major Maggie Bell Cheatham Cartwright and dedicating a bridge in her honor.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1432 by Representative LaRicchia, the 169th. A resolution recognizing Private First Class Charles E. Day and Specialist First Class Jerome Day and dedicating a bridge in their honor.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1433 by Representative Perkle, the 155th. McCall, the 33rd. Bentley, the 139th. Watson, the 172nd. Dickey, the 140th. A resolution urging Congress to expand the eligibility requirements of the H-2A and H-2B guest worker visa programs.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Resolution 1434 by Representative Welch, the 110th. Gardner, the 57th. Reeves, the 34th. Jasperson, the 11th. Dickey, the 140th. A resolution urging the Georgia Department of Education to consider when any course credit, recognition, or other benefit may be conferred.
Education.
The Senate Bill 311 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Honorman of the 45th, Robertson of the 29th, Burke of the 11th, Red of the 33rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 and Title 31, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding health.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
Senate Bill 318 by Senator Ligon of the 3rd, Miller of the 49th, Robertson of the 29th, Heath of the 31st, Thompson of the 14th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 and Title 20, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to education generally.
Higher Education.
Senate Bill 344 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, Miller of the 49th, Dugan of the 30th, Gooch of the 51st, Senator Kennedy of the 18th, and others. A bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 241360, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to order requiring prisoners' deliveries.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
Senate Bill 369 by Senator Payne of the 54th, Huffstetler of the 52nd, Albers of the 56th. Bill be titled Act to amend Code Section 48511 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to returns of public utilities.
Ways and Means.
The Senate Bill 391 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Watson the 1st, Albers the 56th. Burke of the 11th, Huffstetler of the 52nd. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 24, Title 33, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding insurance.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
Senate Bill 439 by Senator Brass, the 28th, Thompson, the 14th, Millis, the 53rd, Gooch of the 51st, Dugan of the 30th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 11 of Title 15 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to juvenile code.
Juvenile Justice.
Senate Bill 442 by Senator Ligon of the 3rd, Kennedy the 18th, Tillery the 19th, Cowser the 46th. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 44 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to property.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 462 by Senator Kennedy the 18th, Gooch the 51st, Dugan the 30th, Jones the 25th, then Mullis the 53rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 7 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to banking and finance.
Banks and Banking.
Senate Bill 475 by Senator Martin of the 9th and Butler of the 55th. Bill be titled an act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Grayson.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Senate Bill 490 by Senator Thompson the 14th and Huffstetler of the 52nd. Bill be titled an act to amend an act to provide a homestead exemption from certain city of Cartersville ad valorem taxes.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
That completes first readers.
Earlier today, while the Rules Committee was meeting, we dispensed with the morning roll call. We're going to go ahead now and do the morning roll call. I'm going to ask the clerk to ring the bell. All members of the House will please report to the floor. All members. We are going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1115 by Representative Rogers of the 10th, a bill to provide a new charter for the city of Clarksville. House Bill 1116 by Representative Gullett of the 19th, abstention of the 104th, and Scoggins of the 14th, a bill relating to uninsured motorist coverage under motor vehicle liability policies. House Bill 1117 by Representative Green of the 151st, a bill to amend an act relating to the Board of Education of Stewart County. House Bill 1118 by Representative Laricki of the 169th and Perkle of the 155th, a bill to amend an act providing a new charter for the city of Douglas. House Bill 1119 by Representative Gullett of the 19th, Gravely of the 67th, Bontan of the 17th, Alexander of the 66th, a bill to create a state court of Paulding County. House Bill 1120 by Representative Jones of the 91st, a bill relating to procedure for sentencing and imposition of punishment. House Bill 1121 by Representative abstention of the 104th, Wynn of the 89th, Scoggins of the 14th, Gullett of the 19th, Holland of the 54th, and others, a bill relating to torts. House Bill 1122 by Representative Watson of the 172nd, Jaspers of the 11th, England of the 116th, and Corbett of the 174th, a bill relating to regional commissions. House Bill 1123 by Representative Jones of the 25th, a bill relating to property. House Bill 1124 by Representative Jones of the 25th and Scoggins of the 14th, a bill relating to wills, trusts, and administration of estates. House Bill 1125 by Representative Kelly of the 16th, Silcox of the 52nd, Cooper of the 43rd, Smith of the 70th, Taylor of the 173rd, and others, a bill relating to general provisions relating to health and state employees' health insurance and benefit plans. House Bill 1126 by Representative Tanner of the 9th, Powell of the 32nd, Tarvin of the 2nd, Collins of the 68th, Clark of the 147th, and others, a bill relating to general provisions regarding parks, historic areas, memorials, and recreation. House Bill 1127 by Representative Welch of the 110th and Ilowitz of the 42nd, Stevens of the 164th, a bill relating to zoning procedures. House Bill 1128 by Representative Park of the 101st, Dreyer of the 59th, Drenner of the 85th, Hughley of the 136th, Smyrie of the 135th, and others, a bill relating to regulation and licensure of pharmacy benefits managers. House Bill 1129 by Representative Park of the 101st, Holland of the 54th, Clark of the 108th, Couch of the 50th, McLaurin of the 51st, and others, a bill relating to income tax imposition, rate, and computation and exemptions. House Bill 1130 by Representative Moore of the 95th, Fry of the 118th, and Ilowitz of the 42nd, and Bonner of the 72nd, a bill relating to an income tax credit for film, gaming, video, or digital production in Georgia. House Bill 1131 by Representative Park of the 101st, Trammell of the 132nd, Clark of the 108th, Moore of the 95th, Kennard of the 102nd, and others, a bill relating to imposition rate, computation of income tax. House Bill 1140 by Representative Clark of the 108th, Jones of the 25th, Burnell of the 77th, abstention of the 104th, Carson of the 46th, a bill relating to general provisions regarding child custody proceedings. House Bill 1143 by Representative McCall of the 33rd, Jones of the 47th, Cantrell of the 22nd, Green of the 151st, a bill relating to form and contents of application for registration, heavy vehicle tax, and satisfactory proof of insurance. House Resolution 1409 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th, Newton of the 123rd, Knight of the 130th, Mathiak of the 73rd, Silcox of the 52nd, and others. Resolution urging the Congress to repeal the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974 or amend it to allow states to impose stricter requirements. House Resolution 1410 by Representative Davis of the 87th. Resolution proposing the amendment to the Constitution so as to waive the state's defense of sovereign immunity regarding actions of the Board of Regents of the University System of Georgia. Senate Bill 248 by Senator Albers of the 56th, Harper of the 7th, Robertson of the 29th, the bill relating to the Georgia Firefighters Pension Fund. Senate Bill 249 by Senator Albers of the 56th, Harper of the 7th, Robertson of the 29th, the bill relating to the Peace Officers Annuity and Benefit Fund. Senate Bill 306 by Senator Say of the 34th, Mullis of the 53rd, Burke of the 11th, Orrock of the 36th, Butler of the 55th, and others, bill relating to speech, language, pathologists, and audiologists. Senate Bill 313 by Senator Burke of the 11th, Watson of the 1st, Duggan of the 30th, Kennedy of the 18th, Huffstetler of the 52nd, and others, a bill relating to regulation and licensure of pharmacy benefit managers. Senate Bill 336 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, Duggan of the 30th, Thompson of the 14th, Miller of the 49th, Kennedy of the 18th, and others, a bill relating to prestige license plates and special license plates. Senate Bill 355 by Senator Beach of the 21st, a bill relating to professions and businesses. Senate Bill 370 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, Brass of the 28th, Kennedy of the 18th, Hours of the 56th, Jordan of the 6th, and others, a bill relating to public utilities and public transportation. Senate Bill 431 by Senator Wilkinson of the 50th, Tippins of the 37th, Black of the 8th, Brass of the 28th, Martin of the 9th, a bill relating to annual performance evaluation. Through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Jan Tankersley, the 160th District Chairman of the Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals had in its consideration the following bills, the House and Senate. This instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 1006 do pass. House Bill 1025 do pass. House Bill 1075 do pass. House Bill 1088 do pass. House Bill 1110 do pass. Senate Bill 438 do pass. Senate Bill 450 do pass. House Bill 1087 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Jan Tankersley of the 160th District Chairman. Representative Martin of the 49th District Chairman of the Committee on Higher Education submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Higher Education is under consideration following bill of the House. It's instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 1085 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Martin of the 49th District Chairman. Representative Tom McCall of the 33rd District Chairman of the Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration following bills of the House. It's instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 690 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 886 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 1057 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Tom Call, the 33rd District Chairman. Representative Mark Newton of the 123rd District Chairman of the Committee on Access to Quality Health Care submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Access to Quality Health Care has had under consideration following bills of the House. It has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 1032 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 1105 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Mark Newton of the 123rd District Chairman. We don't have one of these from Ways and Means?
They came in yesterday.
Okay. Representative Barry Fleming of the 121st District Chairman on Committee on Judiciary submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration following bills to the House. Instructed me to report the same back to the House. Following recommendations. House Bill 452 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 544 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Barry Fleming, the 121st District Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
We are about to go on to the local calendar. We are about to go to the local calendar. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. One bill on the local calendar relates to homestead exemption and requires a recorded two-thirds roll call vote for passage. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 1006 by Representative Jackson of the 64th Atlanta Judicial Circuit. House Bill 1025 by Representative Setzler of the 35th City of Ackworth. House Bill 1075 by Representative Holland of the 54th City of Atlanta. House Bill 1088 by Representative Jones of the 167th City of Ludwicki. House Bill 1110 by Representative Hatchett of the 150th Town of East Dublin. Senate Bill 438 by Senator Tillery of the 19th Appling County. Senate Bill 450 by Senator Harper of the 7th Osceola Irwin County. House Bill 1087 by Representative Turner of the 21st City of Holly Springs.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of the bills on the local calendar, the ayes are 153, the nays are 1. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. All members in the chamber of the House will please take your seats and cease conversation. We are about to go on to morning orders. Yesterday, we had an experiment in self-governance on morning orders. But in honor of today being a special occasion, we're not. Today would have been the 96th birthday of Speaker Thomas B. Murphy, the longest serving speaker in the history of the United States. I ask you to stand for a moment of silence to a true giant in the history of this state. Thank you. So to honor Speaker Murphy, some of you will get 10 seconds. Some of you will get 45 seconds. Some of you will get 3 or 4 minutes. And some of you I'm just not even going to look at. And they call me a bully. We do have a lot of business to take care of today, and we have a total of 10 minutes by rule. That will be allocated 30 seconds per member. 30 seconds per member. Chair recognizes Representative Beth Moore for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. I'm here to announce that today is Public Library Day. Woo, yes. There are 408 public libraries that serve each and every county in Georgia. There were more than 26 million in-person visits and more than 40 million online visits in 2019 to Georgia public libraries. There were 36 million books, media, and materials checked out of public libraries, with an average of 98,000 materials every day. You'll see on your desk there is lunch, varsity hot dogs, so please come and visit your public libraries. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman F. Strachan for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 special groups with us here today. First of all, the Gwinnett County Bar Association and President Donald Lee are with us in the gallery. If y'all would please stand so that we can recognize you. Morning. Also today, it's Alzheimer's Awareness Day at the state capitol. So if you see advocates wearing purple around the capitol, please greet them, welcome them to the capitol. If we could give all of our Alzheimer's awareness advocates a round of applause, please. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Doreen Carter for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a super special guest with us today. She is one of the longest living native Atlantans still residing in the city, with Ms. Mary Leela Morgan. Please stand. She's in the gallery. She will be 92 years old on Saturday, March the 14th. She's my great cousin. Happy birthday. I love you. Oh, you're the well.
Ms. Morgan is my birthday buddy. Chair recognizes Representative Billy Mitchell for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembled in the gallery are the members of some distinguished DeKalb County residents. They are part of the DeKalb County Chambers of Commerce Day. And assembled as, would you please stand, the DeKalb County Chamber of Commerce, the Dunwoody Perimeter Chamber of Commerce, the Chamblee Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Lithonia Chamber of Commerce, and the Stonecrest Chamber of Commerce. Would their members and president please stand? Thank you for joining me and giving them a hand.
Chair recognizes Representative Abel Mabel Thomas for a morning order. Ladies, time is running.
All right, I didn't hear it. I was trying to do too many things. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to do a moment in Black history as well as a moment in women's history. And on my table at the Yellow Rose event today, it was Shirley Chisholm. And Shirley Chisholm is one of the most dynamic political figures you ever know. She's the first African-American woman from Brooklyn. She's from Brooklyn, New York, that was a congressperson. And then the second, well, not the second, but the first person from the South was Barbara Jordan. And I just wanted to say that I met Shirley Chisholm at an older age. In other words, she might have been 60 or something like that. But she ran for president in 1972 at the age of 47, and she was unbelievable. Anybody ever seen any tapes? As a matter of fact, she was able to get over 150 delegates in 1972 when she ran for president. And so even though Obama was the first elected Black president, she paved the way, and she was unbossed and unbought and unbossed, okay? And she really lived up to it. Please, y'all, Google Shirley Chisholm, because the way she paved the road for women and Black folks is unbelievable.
Amen.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And also,
Ladies' time has expired.
okay, and my mother's birthday is today. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Saines for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recognize the Georgia teen Republicans who are here today. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, it's great to see the youngest of our citizens take part in the process. They'll be here for a drop-in Coverdale 605 from 12 to 1 o'clock. And I'm proud to have the honorary teen Republican emeritus, Representative Hogan, here to help present them. So thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Dickerson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like for all of the women that were honored this morning at the Women's Legislative Breakfast to please stand up there in the gallery. These are the women who've been working in the trenches, this is Women's History Month, and we would like to honor them for all of the work that they do. As you can remember, Fannie Lou Hamer says, "I'm tired of being sick and tired." So we would like to honor these women who are still being sick and tired of the things that are not happening for women out here today. Thank you, ladies.
Chair recognizes Representative Frazier for a morning order.
Come on back, y'all. Carolyn, you go sit down. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we continue to celebrate our 100 years of having the right to vote, and we honored over 32 women, phenomenal women today in the Blue Room this morning, we would like to make history right here in the chamber. It is an honor to represent to be able to honor 3 amazing women here. And 100 years from now, we will be talking about this. And at this time, I would like for my colleagues that are holding these beautiful vases of yellow roses to present one to Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones, our former Minority Whip, Representative Carolyn Hughley, and our Chairwoman of Natural Resources, Representative Lynn Smith. Thank you for all that you have done, and thank you for all that you will continue to do. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Jasmine Clark for a morning order.
Good morning, everybody. I come here to honor the life of my grandmother, Miss Lucille Rainey. This morning, I got a phone call at 5:00 a.m., a phone call that I knew was coming, but I was not prepared for. My grandmother was born May 15th, 1921. She's been through a lot. She's seen a lot. She's done a lot, and it's probably because of her that I am here today. And so today I just want to honor her life. She passed away this morning at about 4:30 a.m. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, we have 3 members and 50 seconds total. Chair recognizes Representative Park for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Across our great state, the Boys and Girls Club of Georgia serves more than 78,000 youth by helping them reach their full potential. We have with us today finalists for the Youth of the Year Award, which recognizes those who have overcome enormous odds and demonstrated exceptional character. Congratulations to each and every one of you. Please know that we see you, we support you, and will continue to do all we can to ensure you have an opportunity to fill your American dream. So when you may face times of trouble and hardship, never give up, never lose hope, and never grow weary of doing good. Finalists, please rise and be recognized. Colleagues, please join us in welcoming these future leaders to the People's House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, all the time is gone today. Chair recognizes Representative Wynn to introduce the Doctor of the Day. Nope. Pitching in relief of Representative Wynn is Representative Brian Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have Dr. Casey Hendricks, is a board-certified family medicine. She has a degree from West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine and works at Iowa Primary Care. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Hendricks. Please.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to say thank you all for having me. Please, if you feel sick, come see me today. And most importantly, please wash your hands. At least 20 seconds. Sing the happy birthday song twice. Use your elbows, not your handshake. And thank you for all your leadership in the middle of this COVID-19 outbreak. Thank you.
We are going on to the rules calendar. And for your planning purposes, it's the chair's intention to find a reasonable point at which to take a lunch break and do that, and then come back, because we have a full day here in the chamber. But we're also going to try to get through before too terribly late, because we have a lot of committees that we're wanting to meet. The clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1111.
House Bill 1111 by Representative Welch, the 110th and others, to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 4 of Chapter 12 of Title 45 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated relating to management of budgetary and fiscal affairs. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Budget and Fiscal Affairs Oversight, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Andy Welch to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I ask for your favorable consideration of substitute to HB 1111. This is, first section deals with the cleanup language, and the second section deals with the annual reserves and the annual withholding by the governor, subjecting it to a 1% reduction in terms of the trigger, and making sure that the reductions that go through the first quarter are made, that decision is made in the second quarter of the year. With that, I ask for your favorable consideration of the bill. I'll take any questions that you may have.
You do not appear to have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 1111 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of House Bill 1111, the ayes are 144, the nays are 14. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1112.
House Bill 1112 by Representative Perkle of the 155th and others, to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 4, Chapter 12 of Title 45, and Article 2 of Chapter 17 of Title 50 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated relating to management of budgetary and fiscal affairs. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Budget and Fiscal Affairs Oversight, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Clay Perkle to present House Bill 1112.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I bring for your consideration the committee substitute to House Bill 1112. It's 1112. This bill has got four parts. I'm kind walk through them with you for just a second. It deals with budget accountability. The first, we will create a 5-member State Council of Economic Advisors. 3, including the chairman, will be chosen by the governor, 1 appointed by the speaker, and 1 by the president of the Senate. They'll meet quarterly, review the state treasury receipts, and publish a revenue range of anticipated state revenues. The governor will set the revenue estimate within the range. It does not take away the governor's exclusive authority to set our revenue estimate. It provides additional eyeballs on this important process. The second, it's sections 2 through 7 is a transparency piece. It's transparency in the budget process. Each agency right now prepares a white paper that they provide to their individual boards and to OPB. It includes their mission and how much money they need appropriated to accomplish their purpose. Our request in these sections is just to include us as well. It includes budget requests and allotments, program changes, and any notice to reserve funds. We would just like to be informed. So it's really a transparency piece. The next part is Section 8, which repeals a code section. Code Section 451295, and that is Section 8 in the bill on page 6. This code section was added in 1991 in the first part of the Miller administration while we were having recession period. He created his first executive action in 1991 was to appoint the Williams Commission, and it came with this code section that has never been used in the almost 30 years it's been on the books. It allows agencies to reinvest half of the savings that they find. There's an unintended consequence that agency could produce savings by not executing activities. It has never been used and probably needs to be pulled from our code. And the last part is in Section 10. Section 10 on pages 6 and 7. It deals with the redirection of unexpended bond funds. What we do in practice now, but it's not in code, if there's a redirection of funds, let's say a bond came in at $10 million and we expended $8.5 million for that purpose, what we do now is allow the $1.5 million to be used within the department for the purpose of the bond. We had, as you recall, Chairman England, when we introduced the amended budget just 10 days ago, there was an item in there that was an $11 million DJJ project in Gwinnett County, and the request was to redirect it. If it's over $2 million, it should come back before this body and go back through the process to get more eyeballs on it. So that's really the bill, Mr. Speaker. Do I have any questions?
You do not have any well, you do have a question. Do you yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Parsons to your left for a question.
Thank you, Speaker. Gentlemen, yield?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Isn't it true that I have a few concerns, or maybe I just don't completely understand, but if I could ask, the 3 members that would serve on the governor's part of this commission, can you tell me what positions or who they would be?
Sure. So the governor would choose 3, the speaker would choose 1, the president of the Senate will choose 1. One of the 3 the governor chooses will be his economic advisor, the one, and that will chair the committee, and he'll have 2 other appointments to the 5-person committee.
Well, isn't it true? I understand that in the mechanism you're talking about, it would make sense to have the governor to have the weightier, more weight than but I'm having trouble understanding why there would even be. I feel like that isn't it true? I feel like that the 3 that the governor would have would most likely vote the same way.
I would think so.
Okay. But my last question, if you'll yield.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any concerns that this, and there could be, you could have a 3-2 vote, you can have a 3-2 split vote. You have any concerns that this would actually force, because of the publicity? If this were to happen, there would be a good bit of coverage news coverage and publicity of it. I mean, do you not have any concerns that this would actually, from a political standpoint, wouldn't cause one chamber or both chambers, depending on the political how it was divided up, that they would want to go, that they would want to get the publicity. We want to make this higher, or we want to make it lower, just for those reasons, just for the political reasons. We want to get this thing down. We want to have a lower revenue estimate so we don't spend as much money, or we want to have it higher so we can pay for more things. Do you have any concerns about that?
No, sir, I don't. And honestly, this is not a political question for me. This is actually a policy thing. So you will get economists that have the solemn duty of looking at expected revenues. They look at the economy throughout the state, and I'm not. This is a policy decision. The governor would have 3 appointments, and it puts us at the table to listen to the dialogue, and I'm not.
Okay, I appreciate it. This gentleman yield for one more. I
Yes, sir, I
this will be
will.
the last one.
Okay, promise.
I'm a little bit apprehensive about if there were, and sometimes the governor does make changes in his estimate, even when
Yes,
we're in session.
that's correct.
What impact would this have on that with this commission? And there are changes even after we're in session that, based on the revenues coming in, or what the forecast is based on revenues that will come in, that he has to make a late change in it. Or there needs to be a late change. How would that even work?
And thank you for that, because they will meet quarterly, so there will be opportunities to make changes before they actually give us the revenue estimate that we build the budget on. So there will be opportunities. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
You do not have any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 1112 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 1112, the ayes are 138. The nays are 28. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. What purpose does Chairman Welch arise?
Make a motion.
State your motion.
I have 2. The first one is to move that House Bill 1112 be immediately transmitted to the Senate.
On the gentleman's motion that House Bill 1112 be immediately transmitted to the Senate, is there objection? Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it's on its way.
Well, the second motion, Mr. Speaker, is that
State your motion.
For immediate transmittal of House Bill 1111.
On the gentleman's motion that House Bill 1111 be immediately transmitted to the Senate, is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is on its way to the Senate too. The clerk will read the caption. The clerk will read the caption to House Bill 793.
House Bill 793 by Representative Ralston the 7th and others, to be entitled an act to make and provide appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. This bill having referred to the Committee on Appropriations. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the chair resolves the House into a committee of the whole House for the purpose of considering House Bill 793, the General Appropriations Bill for fiscal year 2021. The chair appoints the gentleman from the 159th District, the Majority Leader of the House, Leader Burns, as chairman to preside over the committee of the whole House. Leader Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we'll move forward. The chair will recognize the gentleman from the 116th, Representative England, to present the bill.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, it's taken a bit to get here, but as always, we come to a day that we sit down and do those things in which we're sent here to do, and today is one of those. First, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for your input and the time that you've taken as we have come to this day to adopt our version of the FY21 budget. It's been a long journey to get here today, and we've only gotten here through God's grace and mercy. Thank you to our speaker and our leadership for listening to our needs back a few weeks ago for the pause, because it set us in good shape to be here today. Thank you especially to our subcommittee chairs and the members of the committee for the long hours of work that they've put in. But most of all, this group of individuals standing down here on the front row, our staff of the House Budget and Research Office, they do an outstanding job. And it's not just a job that they do 40 days out of the year. It's a job that they do 365 days out of the year, 24/7, 365 in many cases. Thank you as well to Governor Kemp, his Chief of Staff, Tim Fleming, Director Farr with OPB, their staff, and our agency heads that have been talking to us and helping us as we've gone through our information, gone through their agency submittals, and for all their hard work and cooperation as well. But I'm proud to stand before you today to present the House version of the state's fiscal year 21 spending plan. $28.1 billion, or just a little over 2% growth over FY20. That 2% equates to about $566 million in new funding, an extremely conservative and cautious revenue estimate by the governor that recognizes that the economy can be and is fickle many times. But $566 million is still a respectable amount of growth. And while the governor's original budget directed over 99% of that new money to teacher raises, and $1,000 raises to some employees, your subcommittees and full committee have taken a little bit different route. Think of it this way. The budget is a lot like an iceberg. It's easy to focus on the exposed bright peaks that are above the surface, but beneath the water lies about 9/10 of that iceberg. And that's what we have to look at. And because the governor's budget also contained over $300 million in proposed agency reductions below that waterline, your subcommittees looked at the entire iceberg and felt very strongly that we had to fortify our base before the tip of the iceberg got even higher. To that end, some of those new funds absolutely had to be reworked into ongoing needs to make certain we are all on solid ground. As we walk through the changes, I will note many activities where the reduction was softened or restored. But take note, we have still been effective in providing salary increases that include an additional $1,000 to certified educators, a 2% merit raise to state employees and employees of the university system, as well as targeted raises of an additional 2 to 5% to address the jobs with the most egregious turnover rates, which also ensure that those targeted low salaries get at least $1,000 of that originally proposed $1,000, at least $1,000 or a little bit more of that originally proposed $1,000. In tandem with the salaries, many of the reductions to agencies in the governor's proposal are based on the elimination of 1,212 vacant positions. And because we recognize that the workload doesn't necessarily go away because the cubicle next to you is empty, state employees are being asked to carry and manage more of the load. The consensus is that there should be some financial recognition of that at every staffing level. In regards to vacancies, the House reviewed and agreed with eliminating 80% of those proposed eliminations in the governor's proposal. But your subcommittees have recommended maintaining 236 of those positions. That's actually not much out of a workforce of 113,000 when you include regents. 77 of those replaced are in behavioral health, public health, and human services. 54 in GBI and Department of Law and Public Defenders, and 52 across educational agencies. Salaries and the impact of budget cuts have dominated our conversations. Your subcommittees have worked intensely and so successfully to strike a balance between the two across the board that is obvious as we proceed through the changes. So if you would, please take out the tracking document. There are 2 documents on your desk, as well as some budget talking points that were delivered this morning. But the tracking document is the one that's the easiest to go through as we track these changes. So in Section 1, Georgia Senate, no changes at this time. Section 2, the Georgia House of Representatives. At 2.1.2, you'll see the first recognition of the statewide change of the 2% merit increase to all state employees. We will not touch on that as we go through each of the departments in light of time. However, we will go through and highlight those where we have done some additional merit and targeted of increases. At 2.1.3, recognizing some operational efficiencies, but also directing that those be used instead of funds being added for the special session next year to deal with reapportionment. 3.1.5, under the joint offices of the General Assembly, you'll see some added funds there for starting to staff up for reapportionment. Section 4, audits and accounts. Those are the statewide changes and just some true-ups there within that. Court of Appeals, looking at 5.1.6 and 1.7, those are 2 joint positions that were asked for by the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. We're saying no to those positions at this time. And under the statewide business court at 5.2.1, just a true up in the actual dollars needed for the operation of that court. Moving on to 6.4.3 under judicial counsel, you'll see a reduction in the ad there for the kinship care. That actually puts them at $500,000 in the budget, in the base of budget, and we can then true up if there's any additional needs there as we come back in the amended budget next January. You'll see the elimination of 1 position that was asked for at 6.4.4, and then down under the JQC at 6.5, you'll see some agency requested positions there so that they can continue to carry out their functions across the state. Juvenile courts, 7.1.2, saying no to that position ad right now because it's currently funded under DJJ using federal funds. So we will continue to use those federal funds until they go away, and at that point then we will come back with state funds to fund that position. Moving on to prosecuting attorneys at 8.2.3. You'll see a reduction there in the recruitment and retention piece proposed by the judiciary, and just saying go with half of that, but focus that on those that are furthest behind on the pay scale. 8.2.4, adding 6 assistant district attorneys in rural areas. And then at 8.2.6, 7, and 8, adding for the new judgeships that will be effective January 1st of next year. Superior Court, Section 9. If you'll look at 9.3.6, 7, and 8, again, the recognition of the additional judgeships. Then 9.3.9, just saying provide funds for 5 staff attorney positions at this time for those circuits with the biggest need. Under Supreme Court, again, at 10.1.9 and 10.1.10, those 2 shared positions that we said no to back in the Court of Appeals. Under the State Accounting Office, you'll see the statewide changes there on the first page. Then moving over under the Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission, some requested adds by the Commission for 1 senior auditor, 1 junior auditor, 1 administrative financial assistant, and 1 training IT person there so they can continue to do the job that they do. Under Section 12, Department of Administrative Services, you'll see us saying no to the cut at Certificate of Need panel. That is actually required by code that panel exists. Section 13, under the Department of Agriculture. At 13.1.4, there was a recommendation from zero-based budgeting last year to move the Athens and Tifton Vet Labs over to the Board of Regents out from under the Department of Ag. However, it does require legislation be introduced so that the Board of Regents can actually make the rate determinations for what will be charged for the testing. That has not been done at this point in time, so it's necessary that remain under the purview of the Department of Agriculture. 13.2.6, a restoration there of $339,000, almost $340,000 for 2 animal inspectors and 2 food safety inspectors. Moving down to 13.2.7, saying no to that reduction because those savings would not be realized. And then at 13.2.8, you'll see the first of several targeted increases within the budget, a 4% targeted salary increase on top of the 2% that we've already talked about. So it'd be a 6% total for these food inspector positions, those that are charged with making sure that the food that we eat every day around this state that we consume or buy from grocery stores and such is safe and adequate and wholesome for our families. 13.2.9, just the recognition of the Georgia Hemp Program and its stand-up cost and operational costs there. 13.3.6, just some additional savings that could be garnered there. 13.4.5 under marketing and promotion. We restored the international trade rep and the business support analysts, and then on down at 13.4.6 as it relates to Georgia Grown, restoring the Georgia Grown marketing program, the Georgia Grown website, and some farmers market maintenance money. And then again at 13.4.7, a 4% targeted additional raise there. Under 13.5.2, the poultry vet diagnostic labs, reduction of the cut there just to allow them to finish up some of the work that they've been doing in preparing for avian influenza and the equipment that was bought and the shed that was purchased last year to park that equipment under. Then moving on to Soil and Water Conservation Commission, some true-ups there for vacancies and hiring dates changes. And then at 13.7.9, you'll see the addition for 1 erosion sediment control plan reviewer. NRCS is reducing the number of those plans that they're reviewing statewide, so more of that is falling to the State Soil and Water Conservation Commission to do. Under banking and finance, you'll see statewide changes, but then at 14.3.6, you'll see where we're saying at this point not to move the industrial loan program. That also requires legislation for that move to be made, so we're saying no to that because we don't have the legislation at this point. It also corresponds at 29.4.4, and we'll touch on that in a few minutes. Moving on to Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability, Section 15. Chair Lady Dempsey and her committee have met hour after hour after hour and heard hours upon hours of testimony from the support community for the individuals that fall into this category, fall into the category of receiving services from DBHDD. And I don't know how many of you watch those hearings, but if what you hear and what you see in those hearings do not touch you, then I just honestly wonder if you've got a heart. And so in doing so and realizing that many of these services are the things that allow parents and caretakers the ability to go out and actually work a job and do things to be productive members of the community if their loved ones can be cared for a portion of the day while they can go do those jobs. And it gives them a chance to have respite as well. Because believe me, knowing firsthand from caring for a sick loved one, you've got to have that respite time. You got to have that little bit of time to run to the doctor, run to the grocery store, and that's a lot of what winds up being helped here in DBHDD. So if you look at 15.1.4, you'll see where we're softening that proposed cut and increasing the statewide bed capacity by 44 beds, taking it from 176 beds to 220. Then at 15.1.5, utilize some existing funds there for pregnant postpartum women living with substance abuse issues. 15.2.9, reducing the cut there, but allowing for the maintaining of the contract with the Bobby Dodd Institute and Easter Seals and the things that they provide for our Georgia families. 15.2.11, restoring 4 of the 12 proposed reduced slots there for 4 individuals that were not in positions that were transferable. At 15.2.12, another one of those items that I know each and every one of you have heard from constituents about, I know I've heard from multiple constituents about, and that is increasing the number of now and comp waivers that are available to citizens across this state. So we're seeing an increase of 100 slots, 60 comp, and 40 now waivers. Currently, there are 6,314 individuals on the wait list. So we're trying to address that as best we can. 15.2.13, another one of the targeted salary increases for a high turnover rate. They're dealing with approximately a 48% turnover rate within the agency there at DBHDD. You'll see another reduction at 15.3.5. Again, 2 positions out of 14 proposed to be cut that were at risk of not being able to transfer. 15.3.7, 4% targeted increase there. Moving on to 15.4.7, slowing the reduction there under training for behavioral health workforce. Many of these positions are out in rural Georgia. This allows some increased flexibility for DBHDD in that training and who they contract with for that training. Moving down to 15.4.10, saying no to the reduction in funds of $8.3 million to behavioral health services, making a full restoration. That will mean 6,800 additional individuals will be served. 15.4.11, increasing the statewide crisis bed capacity to maintain 95 beds. And then at 15.4.2, another additional 4% targeted increase to slow or help to slow the turnover rate within the agency. 15.6.4, saying no to the reduction in the contract with the Marcus Autism Center, so a restoration of $750,000 there. 15.8.8, saying no to the crisis respite home full reduction, but going back and replacing part of that. Rivers Edge CSB that serves Bibb and Clayton County, that will allow them to have 16 beds at each location there. 15.9.5, restoring 2 of 18 proposed positions there. 15.10.6, restoring 14 of 59 proposed reduction positions there. 15.10.7, another one of the targeted 4% salary increases for the high turnover rates. And then at 15.11.3, you'll see where we're saying redirect $130,000 in one-time funds for curriculum development to be used in additional prevention services. Moving on down to the attached agencies, under the Sexual Offender Review Board at 15.13.4, you'll see where we have reduced that because one of those positions has to remain at GBI for them to have access to the database. So we're saying we'll put one at GBI and put one here, but one has to remain at GBI. They both cannot be at the Sexual Offender Review Board. Section 16, Department of Community Affairs. At 16.1.2, we're saying no for the time being on that particular transfer. Legislation is required, but however, it has not been filed, and you'll see the corresponding entry at 29.3.6 in just a few minutes. 16.2.5, Chair Lady Houston and her committee a couple of years ago had received audit information as it related to the Atlanta Regional Commission and some misuse of funds there. We had made a reduction at that time on their annual operating grant. We're saying now that they have those issues corrected and are playing with good faith that we want to restore that cut that was made at that point in time. 16.3.4, saying no to that elimination for the Georgia Advocacy Office because it is not duplicated services. Moving on through to 16.10. At 16.10.2, saying no to doing away with the Athens Design Studio. Individual over there works with a lot of the college students, but more importantly, that particular department serves 30 to 35 communities across the state every year, and they get a lot of actual hands-on work out of students that are there at the University of Georgia. 16.10.4, just an adjustment there and true up. Georgia Commission on the Holocaust, I'll stop right here for just a second. It was originally proposed on the governor's budget to move Commission on the Holocaust to Kennesaw State University. And listening to many of those advocates in the Jewish community realized that was not going to be necessarily a very good fit at all. And what we're recommending here is to transfer as an attached agency, just as it's an attached agency under DCA, but move it as an attached agency over to the Board of Regents, but not assign it up under any particular school. So it still gives them the flexibility to operate as an independent entity and not be tied to one of the Regents institutions. On down under GFA at 16.14, you'll see partial restoration at 16.14.2, 3, and 4. And then you'll see an addition at 16.14.5 for the 5-year water plan that's required of the Metro Water Planning District. We'll be talking with our friends in the Senate to get that of what's fully needed there. Under One Georgia Authority at 16.16.2, just the recognition there that the One Georgia Authority will be the one that actually pays the state assessment for the Appalachian Regional Commission, a commission that services and works with 37 North Georgia and Northwest Georgia communities across the state. Moving on to the Department of Community Health, Section 17. If you'll look at 17.4.3, you'll see where we're saying no to the cut at the Rural Health Innovation Center. That was a recommendation from the Rural Development Council last year. We've got it up and running. Actually about to kick them really into high gear here over the next few weeks as we're rolling out some new and innovative ideas that I'll mention down here in just a second. 17.4.4 and 17.4.5 are two transactions that are linked together. One recognizing that one-time funds were put in, coming out, and then one-time funds going back in for a primary care health center in Wayne County and a school-based primary care center in Irwin County. Eliminating the one-time funds put in last year at 17.4.6. 17.4.7, we've been working now, Senator Lucas and a bunch of folks on the Senate side, as well as our own Chairman Gerald Green, have been working in Clay County trying to get a stable primary care environment down there. And so we're helping them here with a little bit of funding to get a clinic up and running there. At 17.4.8, I'd mentioned the Rural Health Systems Innovation Center above there, we're increasing the money that goes into the Rural Hospital Stabilization Grant Program for some innovative ideas we're getting ready to roll out. And so you'll see the recognition of that there. Moving on to 17.5.4, the addition of 2 RN surveyors for nursing homes and 2 surveyors for other licensing as it relates to elder care. Many of you, I think we all saw the AJC research story that shed light on some deficiencies we have there. This is a recognition of the work Chair Lady Cooper and many on her committee and others have done to recognize that issue, and we're seeking to address it. 17.7.8 and 17.7.9 relate to our nursing homes within the state and some adjustments for JCO accreditation and also for an increase in the vent bed rates that are paid for those patients around the state. 17.8.1, a true up of the projection there. Then moving down to 17.8.9 and 17.8.10. Maternal mortality has been a huge issue in our state. It's been a topic of a lot of conversation. I don't know of anyone in this room that has not had this as something that's been bugging them, that's been eating at them, tugging at their heartstrings, realizing the issues that we have across our state. And we have a study committee that worked over this past interim. Chair Lady Cooper and many folks that have helped her, Representative Shannon and several others that have made this something that they're incredibly passionate about. We realize that. And so this House, with Chair Lady Cooper's bill that is, I believe, on the floor today, that will take care for mothers after birth from 2 months to 6 months of Medicaid coverage. Here we are recognizing $19.6 million and $250,000 as well that will pull down a little over $60 million to deal with the issue of maternal mortality. It's time we address it, and that's what we're doing here. 17.8.11, a 1% reimbursement rate increase on 108 primary care codes. 17.8.12 and 9.3 deal with silver diamine fluoride. As I said yesterday, any of you that need to understand what that is, grab Chairman Parrish. He'll be glad to explain. But what it does, it is a treatment for children's teeth, their primary teeth, that helps prevent cavities. And we're just saying that Medicaid will now help pay for that for those young newborns and toddlers. 17.12.1 under graduate medical education. Funding there for 185 new residency slots, just a truing up of that number. Then recognition at 17.12.2 for the FMAP required adjustment there. Saying no to the reduction at the accelerated track program at Memorial Health at 17.12.3. Then moving over to 17.12.7, allowing flexibility for Augusta University in their strategic prioritized fellowships to allow them to recruit, retain, or realign to statewide campus partners throughout the state, just saying to keep those funds in place for that. Then at 17, 12, 9, 10, and 11, saying no to those reductions to those programs as well. 17, 13, 2, 17, 14, 2, saying no to the reduction to the Mercer Medical Grant and to the Morehouse School of Medicine grants there for that partnership that we've had in place for over 40 years, where those two institutions are helping to educate and train primary care physicians across this state for rural and underserved areas as well. 1715-1, saying no to the reduction in the loan repayment program there. 1715-2, just an adjustment for actuals on the malpractice insurance premium program there. 17.16.2, you'll see the elimination of that cut as it relates to the capitation rate for students that are in undergraduate medical education as it refers to their capitation rate. And then at 17.17.3, just another insistence that this House feels that it's necessary to have a medical director position there at the Composite Medical Board. also. And then under drugs and narcotics at 1718.5, you'll see again where we're saying that we feel very strongly about the data management system needs to be put in place there at drugs and narcotics as well. Department of Community Supervision, moving on to section 18. 18.2.6, restoration of 11 sworn positions that were not vacant. Moving on to Department of Corrections at section 19. 19.2.13, and you'll see this throughout Department of Corrections, some more of those targeted, very specific pay increases in addition to the statewide 2%, but a 2% statewide to help address a 42% turnover rate in the Department of Corrections. You'll see this happen at 19.3.6, 4.4, 5.9, 8.22, and 19.9.8. Too much overtime being worked causes burnout and causes high turnover within the Department of Corrections. Moving on now to 19.5.8, a redirection of $3.4 million that was put in a couple of years ago to transition the health division of Department of Corrections over to electronic health records. They've not been able to make that transition just yet. However, the medical needs, the cost of providing medicine to those within the Department of Corrections has continued to escalate. So we're recognizing, utilizing about $3.5 million that already exists, plus another $10 million for those needs there at 19.5.8. Moving on to the Department of Defense, Section 20, those are statewide 2% adjustments there. Section 21, Department of Driver Services. 21.1.6, just a reduction in the cut at that particular line. Then at 21.2.5, a reduction in that cut, but also keeping in place the vault system at those high-risk DDS facilities around the state and allowing for continued armored truck utilization as it relates to taking the cash money received, checks, and other things that are received there at those installations to and from the depository institutions as well. 21.2.6, the restoration of 19 driver examiners to try to keep the lines as short as possible. And then again at 21.2.10, the recognition of a 39% turnover rate within driver services, a 2% targeted additional pay raise there as well. And then at 21.3.6, just an adjustment there and the reduction that was proposed. Section 22, decal. So you'll see at an elimination of a cut at 22.1.4 dealing with the CAPS program. And we're saying no to that to keep that availability to 125 children. It services actually about 50,000 children total throughout the state. Then at 22.1.5, the recommendation of Chair Lady Dempsey's committee a year ago dealing with State Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Coordinator within decal and saying that we recognize that need. Then moving on down to 22.3.6, saying no to the reduction to the Georgia Family Connections Partnership. Then saying no to a reduction at one position that was thought to be vacant under pre-K specialists, saying no to that cut. 22.3.10 is the first time you'll see throughout the budget the adjustment we made as it relates to teacher pay raises, taking it from the $2,000 proposed by the governor to the $1,000 proposed by the House, so that we may go through and take care of many other issues that are within the budget that actually relate not only in the classroom to teachers, but also to all 10.7 million Georgians. Then at 22.3.12, for the first time since 2011, you'll see the recognition of lottery funds there to add 1,000 new pre-K slots. And at 22.3.13, increased funds for classroom operations, something that hasn't been done since 2010, by 2.5%. And then 4 behavioral and classroom support specialists to assist lead teachers within the pre-K classrooms across this state, there at 22.3.14. Under economic development, you've got the statewide changes, and then one change at 23.9.5. You'll see where we're saying we want to reduce the cut that was proposed to the Georgia Historical Marker Program. We're reducing that to a $50,000 reduction instead of $100,000. Section 24 under Department of Education. Under Ag Education, you'll see a few adjustments there, but you'll also see the recognition that the committee continues to pay toward understanding and recognizing that agriculture is the #1 industry in this state. And as I said yesterday morning in full committee, we have a duty to help educate young people today where it is that their food and fiber comes from. With less than 2% of individuals engaged in actual agricultural production in this state, it is mighty hard for folks to realize that milk doesn't come from the shelf at Kroger, that there was a cow involved, that hamburger doesn't just come from the chiller section at Publix. There was an actual cow involved. And so that's what our ag education programs are so good at doing across this state. And I'm excited to see that we're going now into the urban areas. For so many years, we've kind of steered clear of the urban areas. There's not been a whole lot of interest. But it's exciting for me to stand here today and tell you that we're starting to see an awful lot of interest in the urban areas, and we're allocating for that here within this budget. And then at 24.1.1, just allowing for the expansion of camp programs at the 2 FFA camps, Camp John Hope and at Covington for the FFA and FCCLA camps. There's some programmatic staff there. 24.2.10, the addition for a budget analyst and grant manager position under the Business Finance Administration program at DOE. Moving on to 24.4.8, just the recognition of the charter schools facilities grants and the growth there. Then under the Chief Turnaround Officer, you'll see a couple of transactions here, and what we basically are doing is saying we're moving the Chief Turnaround Officer program over to school improvement, something that Superintendent Woods, the State School Board, and the Governor have been working on, so we're just recognizing the movement of that program here. Under GNETs at 24.9.1, just a true up there. Again, a true up at 24.9.3 for a decline in enrollment, and then the adjustment on the salary schedule at 24.9.4. Moving on to non-QBE grants. Hold harmless for the residential treatment facilities at 24.13.3. They're seeing a reduction in the number of students. However, it takes them a little bit of time to transition the teaching staff over to the new positions and to adjust that workload. So we're recognizing that and doing a hold harmless there. Then the other, there's a reduction we could take at 24.13.6 as it relates to an RTC program manager position. School nutrition saying no to the reduction in travel at 24.14.6. And then at 24.15.3 under preschool disabilities, you'll see again the recognition of the teacher pay raise there. Pupil transportation 24.16.1 and 2. Again, recognition there of enrollment growth, but also the hard work that many of our school bus drivers do across the state. A targeted 5% increase as well there for our local school system transportation employees. Under QBE equalization at 24.17, you'll see a true up under local 5-mil share, again a true up there. Then at 24.19.3, the big chunk of the teacher pay raise is recognized here. And while it does say September 1st start date, that is because there is a 2-month time lag on implementation, but what it means is that every teacher will receive the full $1,000 within FY21. So don't let anybody tell you anything any different. 24.19.4, just the recognition of some changes there as it relates to State Commission charter schools, supplements, charter school grant adjustments, And again, just some other adjustments and true-ups for formula funding on down through there. Doing a hold harmless for school nurses at 24.19.8. And then one thing I want to stop for just a second on here at 24.19.10. This is something that, as we've talked about the teacher pay raise, and I know that some folks are disappointed that we did a slight reduction there. But we recognize that not everything deals with trying to instruct a student. A lot of it deals with climate in the classroom and the things that are going on that are not instructional related. And that's a lot of times issues that students are having. And so several years ago in 2013, we passed House Bill 283, making our recommended ratio of 1 to 450 counselors per student. We've never had the opportunity to go in and fully fund that. So you'll see here a recognition of fully funding that counselor ratio of $24.7 million to put those individuals within the school systems to help teachers as they manage those students that are causing disruptive behavior. Moving on to REISs at 24.20, you'll see there where we're saying no to the cuts, and then just doing one little salary tweak at 24.20.5. REISs do a lot for our school systems across the state, have widely varying program availability from one district to the next, but it's something that every school system vitally needs. 24.21.11, you'll see the transfer of the Chief Turnaround Officer program over to school improvement there. And then a slight reduction at 24.22.1 under the State Charter School Commission admin. Another true up under state schools for training and experience at 24.23.5. And then saying no to the cut at 24.23.6. These state schools should have been exempt under the reductions just like QBE was. They serve about 350 at the three different state schools. And so we're just making sure that they're taken care of. As I've said many times from this well, we in many ways serve as their school board because they don't have a school board, and that's what we're trying to do is make sure we're taking care of those young people. Then moving on under testing at 24.25.7, just the recognition of the increase in growth for the one AP exam for free and reduced price, lunch eligible students, and one STEM test, AP test, for every student within the state. Section 25 under ERS, you'll see just our yearly language reminder to the board there at 25.4.1 saying please take into account the needs of our state retirees that haven't seen a COLA, and either if you're able to do the COLA, if not, recognize and possibly do the 13th check like we've done for the last several years. Under Forestry Commission, basically what you'll see here throughout this document are the statewide changes, but at 21.1.6, 2.4, 2.5, and 3.4. Moving on to 3.5 and 3.6 are basically true ups or lessenings of reductions there so that they're still able to respond to forest fires and to continue to work with our forest industry across the state as it continues to recover from Hurricane Michael. Office of the Governor, the statewide changes there, but also one additional change at 27.6.8. Just saying no to a proposed cut there under the Professional Standards Commission to allow them to catch up on the workload where they were falling behind a little bit to make sure those cases are handled in a timely manner. Section 28, Department of Human Services. If you'll go over, the first change, not counting for the statewide changes, you'll see show up at 28.5.1, restoring the money for the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children contract of $500,000, utilizing $970,000 at 28.5.12 to implement the pilot program for closed foster care cases, and then at 28.5.13, you'll see where we're targeting our DFAC support service specialist to address a 36% turnover rate there. providing an additional 2% on top of the statewide 2% there. 28.7.12, again, you see me standing here with a purple tie on today in recognition of dementia and Alzheimer's. 28.7.12 is the program that we instituted a few years ago to help families across this state to be able to early diagnose and begin treatment for dementia and related issues. And so we're saying no to the reduction there as they are fully ramped up and rolling across this state. Moving on to Elder and Community Living Services at 28.9.2, saying no to that transfer of those over to Elder Support Services. At this time, we do not feel that is this is the proper time to make that transition. You'll see the flip side of that transaction show up at 28.10.4. 28.12.6, we're saying to reduce the cut that was proposed there on those caseworkers for the eligibility workers. There are about 1,883 caseworkers currently in the state handling 1.5 million cases, and that equates to about 774 cases per caseworker. And what we're doing there is giving them the slack in the chain to be able to try to hire more of those positions to lighten that workload, and again, to help reduce the amount of turnover that's being seen there in that agency. Under Family Connection at 28.19.1, reducing of that cut, maintaining the county allotment at $48,500 per county, and then saying no to the reduction at 28.19.2. And you'll see the other statewide changes as you continue through there. Office of the Insurance Commissioner, Section 29 at 29.3.6. You'll see where we're saying no to that transfer that we'd mentioned in DCA earlier. Legislation has not been introduced, so we're still waiting on that to happen. And then at 29.4.5 and 4.4 and 4.5, I mentioned in Banks and Banking earlier about the industrial loans. We're just saying no for the time being because, again, the legislation has not been introduced or passed. Section 30 GBI. At 30.2.7, you'll see just a slight increase in the criminal background check fees of $2.25, going from $25.75 to $28 there. Then you'll see, again, the statewide spreads on the salary increases. But at 30.3.4, we're saying no to the reduction proposed there under Forensic Scientific Services. This will help them hire up the forensic biology scientists and the lab technicians to address the backlog that remains there under the testing program. Moving on to 30.3.6 and 3.7, again recognizing the need for testing at our crime labs across the state and fully standing up the new coastal lab and medical examiner office at Pooler. And then at 30.3.8, GBI had talked about doing some outsourcing of chemistry cases. However, no money had been proposed to do that. We're coming in here and saying we're putting $1 million in to allow for that outsourced chemistry testing, maintain the biological testing within GBI, but allow for the chemistry testing to be done outside if they need to free up space. Under Regional Investigative Services at 30.4.5, just saying to replace some of those positions that had been taken there. Then the Sexual Offender Registration Review Board at 30.4.8, where we had said no a little bit ago on both positions being over there. One has to remain at GBI, so that's what we're recognizing there. Moving on over to Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. You'll see there at 30.5.6 saying no to the reduction there on those individuals that help all of our drug courts and other of those specialty courts around the state in helping monitor those individuals coming through that program, saying no to the reduction in force there. Also saying no to the cut at 30.5.9 the proposed cut to local accountability court, saying no to that at this point as well. It's an incredible impact, financial impact to the state, when every dollar we spend returns $7.74 to, in some way, to economic impact within the state. So we're saying no to those cuts. Moving on, under juvenile justice, section 31.2.8. So our juvenile correctional officers, we've talked about turnover, and I mentioned 30-something%. I mentioned 40-something%. Turnover rate within juvenile correction officers is currently 95%. 95%. We're training folks, they're working for us for a few weeks, and then they're out the door. We incur the operating expense of training only to lose them. So we're doing an additional targeted 4% adjustment on JCOs at 31.2.8, and you'll see that happen again at 31.3.13. And one more time, you'll see it happen at 31.4.10. Again, a 4% on top of the 2% statewide change for those. And you'll also recognize the changes on the teacher pay raise within Department of Juvenile Justice there. Then at Department of Labor, you'll see a language only add at 32.4.6 that allows them to recognize some of their assessment collections for operation of their centers across the state. Department of Law, section 33.1.7, only change there is reducing the cut there to allow them to maintain 5 attorneys and 8 support staff within the Department of Law. Section 34, Department of Natural Resources, to keep up with the legislation we passed in this body last year at 34.1.8 that allows actual commercial fishing of oysters. There is the need for DNR to have a couple of marine biologists to support oyster aquaculture, so we're recognizing that there. You'll see the statewide spreads throughout that agency. And then at 34.3.7, the addition of $500,000 to add 2 environmental engineers and allow for some third-party testing as it relates to the coal ash issue and any other environmental issues there may be within the state that need to be addressed. That allows DNR and their EPD division to be able to fully do what it is they need to do there to handle that issue. 34.6.5, just a true up in the amount there. A reduction in the cut proposed at 34.7.4. Also, you'll see reductions in the proposed cuts at 34.8.5, 8.6, and 8.7. 8.7 is the recognition of the need at Lake Lanier for many abandoned vessels that have partially submerged, and it's something we've been doing now for the last several years. It is a public safety issue up there on the lake, one of the most visited lakes in the country, as a matter of fact. 34.8.15, recognition that DNR will have some expenses incurred in taking over the operation of 2 historic visitor centers and trying to meet that need for them. 34.9.3 under the Solid Waste Trust Fund, another program that the RDC had come up with last year, the Blight Removal and Code Enforcement, or BRACE program, to assist very small communities in clearing up blight and doing community improvement. It is something that fits under the purview of the Solid Waste Trust Fund, and dollars can be used to help with that. Then at 34.10.6, a partial restoration of the cut there, and at 10.7. And then at 34.10.9, just saying no to using House Bill 170 motor fuel funds for the operation of the Sapelo Ferry, to continue to use state funds for that operation. Pardons and paroles, moving on to section 35. A true up at 35.16. A true up again at 35.24 and at 2.9. State Properties Commission, no changes. Public Defenders Council, section 37. Saying no to, let me back up, 37.1.5, just a true up there. Then at 37.1.7 and 1.8, because public defenders do have a continuing legal education requirement, those two lines are related to that training, so we're saying no to the reduction there. Saying no to the reduction at 37.2.5 on the contractual reductions. Saying no to the hiring freeze at 37.2.6, because as we all understand, in order to prosecute, you have to have a defense. Chairman Welch and his committee, Chairman Welch in particular, has been very adamant through the years of making sure that we maintain as best we can a balance there, and I want to commend him and his committee for that, because it's something that always sits at the forefront of their thinking as it relates to that. And at 37.2.8, again, the balancing in the juvenile courts for the assistant public defenders there. Then you'll see the annualization of the court cost at 37.2.9. And then the next 5 items are including that one, those items deal with the establishment of the new judgeships throughout the budget. Section 38, Department of Public Health. 38.1.6, the restoration of part of the cut there as it relates to the Sickle Cell Foundation, allows for the telehealth program to continue and for the mobile testing unit to continue to be able to go around the state. 38.1.7, a reduction in the cut there to core services. Moving on to 38.3.7, just a slight adjustment there, newer information from DPH on something that they could handle there under admin. 38.3.9, transaction very similar to what we did in the amended budget as it relates to the Fulton County Board of Health. You'll see that one show up again here at 38.12.13. It's just a bookkeeping shift. 38.4.5, saying a no in the reduction to travel and supplies under emergency preparedness. It's felt like that it's probably not the time to be taking a cut there. Then at 38.5.4, saying no to the cut to the hepatitis C testing kits, saying no to the cut at 38.5.5 for the Georgia Poison Control Center, however, capturing some savings available at 38.5.6 from consultant contracts. Moving on over to 38.8.6, the recognition of the crab disease, Georgia Newborn Screening Advisory Committee, in recognizing crab disease as one of the approved testing, not alternatives, but one of the testing protocols there, and recognizing that and getting that started as well. 38.10.3, environmental hazard control, saying no to the reductions of those 3 positions in Atlanta, Albany, and Columbus. And then the meat of where we come to under public health is at 38.12.3, and that is lessening the reduction that was proposed from $9.2 million to $3.8 million, so restoration of $5.4 million to departments of public health within our counties. It's very similar to what we did in the amended budget. These are the folks that not only do restaurant inspections, septic tank inspections out in the counties, but in many cases they are the first line of defense. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And then at 38.12.4, just the flip side of the Fulton County transaction I mentioned earlier. Under the Georgia Trauma Commission at 38.15.2, actually saying no to that little over $1 million cut there and adding another $594,000 in recognition of the new Regional Coordination Center that is housed at Grady, that handles the dispatching and of ambulances and their disbursement around the city as it relates to when accidents and traumatic events occur. As the emergency room situation happened at Emory, as we're all aware, not at Emory, at Grady, we all realized that we had a pretty bad shortage in ER beds at the #1 trauma center in the Southeast. And so Grady, with partnering with Emory and others, set up this regional council to make sure that the right patient's getting to the right place at the right time. And instead of something that I actually thought was already being done within the state, but this is a model we're going to be looking out for a statewide rollout here in the coming months as well. Moving on to the Department of Public Safety, looking at 39.4.4, just to true up for the actual numbers within the trooper schools, and then at 39.4.7, recognizing some savings that can be attained due to attrition during the trooper schools. 39.5.7, you'll see where we're saying no to the use of motor fuel fees for the Motor Carrier Compliance Division, saying those are to be used for paving and contracts in the Transportation Department. So we're saying continue to use state funds in that category as well. 39.7.4, saying no to the reduction in the temporary proctors, monitors, and evaluators for those testings. Then at 39.8.8, saying no to the reduction in the contract with the sheriffs and our local police chiefs. Doing so would cause some harm to them in recruiting, but also at 39.9.9, in closing the Central Law Enforcement Academy, it would also make it more difficult for those agencies north of Atlanta to recruit and maintain individuals to go through the training. Reducing the cut at 39.9.6 under the training positions there. Eliminating the cut at 39.9.7 on the public safety training courses, and then a reduction in operating expenses, reducing that cut there at 39.9.8. Then under Office of Highway Safety at 39.10.4 and 10.5, saying no to using the Joshua Law funds for operating, that they need to go to the actual scholarships, and then taking a 4.5% cut out of operating of the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. Under Public Service Commission, Section 40, an addition of 2 investigators or inspectors at 40.2.3 for the Call Before You Dig program. Those inspectors basically bring in a 2-for-1 return there, so each one will bring in approximately double what their salary is. A rent increase at 40.2.4. Again, a reduction in the cut on operating expenses at 40.3.3, saying no to the reduction of contractual services and professional associations at 3.4. Awful lot of information garnered from those national associations that allow for them to be able to use that research, have access to that research, much cheaper rate than what it would cost us to do it in-house. Reduction of the operating expense cut at 3.5, and then at 40.3.6, a slight increase in the rent that they're having to pay as well. Section 41, Board of Regents. I'm going to try to make this one as simple as I can because there's nothing simple about it. But let me first start off with mentioning TRS and ORP. As we came into session, and we have since passed a bill that eliminates the transaction that was in law between the optional retirement plan and TRS. Something that had been basically not done since 99 or 2000. The actuarials had said that it was not necessary. An audit last year popped it back up on the radar screen because at that point that law was not taken off the books, so it then appeared that it would be a liability again. We've moved forward on that legislation, eliminating that liability, so you'll see some reductions through the budget as it relates to that. Now, as it relates to Ag Experiment and Cooperative Extension and the other research and extension programs, whether it be forestry or marine or skidaway, we have gone back to the actual agency submission in many places, and in some cases lessen those reductions as it relates to Ag Experiment and Cooperative Extension, because this body and the body across the building have worked awfully hard over the last several years to improve research and extension across this state that is offered by our research institutions, and we felt like that it'd be regressive to go back and take deep cuts there at this point in time. So you'll see those restorations under Ag Experiment Station and Cooperative Extension. Then under the Athens and Tifton Vet Labs, you'll see where we're saying no to that transfer there that I mentioned when we were talking about the Department of Ag. Under the Enterprise Innovation Institute, you'll see some changes and reductions there. But then at 41.4.7, as it relates to Invest Georgia, we've been investing $10 million per year into Invest Georgia. However, as we started asking for information on that and how effective those investments had been, we kind of came up short on getting that information. So what we're doing at this time is pulling $5 million of that investment out and saying for the time being we're going to ease up a little bit, make sure that we're understanding what all's going on, and make sure that it's something that we concur with, and then we'll look at it as we go forward. 41.4.12, you'll just see the transfer of the Innovation Gateway, and you'll see that show up again at 41.9.7 here in a second. Forestry Cooperative Extension and Forestry Research, as I mentioned, lessening many of the cuts there, going back to what the request had actually been, or in some cases even less of a reduction. At 41.7 under Georgia Archives, as you remember several years ago, as we went into the recession, we were looking everywhere to make reductions. And in many places, we've not made restorations. And our Georgia Archives is one of those in particular. We felt at this point they're basically at bare bones. And in order to maintain their statutory requirement on operating and being open for the public to use as the repository of state historical documents, that it was necessary that we not take reductions there for the time being as well. Moving on to 41.8.4 on the Cyber Center, just to true up on that number. 41.8.6 as it relates to the Cyber Security Maturity Model Certification Program, or the CMMC. Department of Defense does require certain assessments and certifications be in place for individuals doing either work for them or contract work for them. And this is a partnership with the Technology Association of Georgia, and as the Cyber Center has located there in Augusta, Georgia, to make sure that we're helping fill that pipeline of necessary and needed employees. 41.9.7, you'll see the transfer I mentioned earlier of the $133,000 there. And then moving on to the Marine Institute of Restoration there. Marine Resources Extension, saying no to the cuts. The Medical College of Georgia Hospitals and Clinics are keeping those slots and salaries for the medical residency programs. It's 135 total slots that are still available there. Under public libraries, and it's good that it's Public Library Day. I'm watching y'all as you bring in the varsity hot dogs to sit down and eat in front of me. That's just not fair. Ain't nothing right about that at all, I'm just going to tell you. But you'll see some adjustments. 41.14.4. A little bit more of a cut there as they've switched from Microsoft to Google, and it's allowed for a reduction there. But a reduction in the cut at 41.14.5, which will allow them to continue to accept credit cards in their operations. Then moving down to 41.14.8 and 14.9. The restoration of operating funds at 14.8, doing a hold harmless there where the population projections were just a little bit off. And then at 14.9, going back to the position that we left here with last year of funding the materials grants at 35 cents per capita. So we're saying no to that reduction. 41.15.8 and 15.9 is the restoration of funds for the Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center and the restoration of funds for the Center for Rural Prosperity and Innovation. 41.15.14, as I mentioned earlier, in the Commission for the Holocaust, that's where it would have been assigned to Kennesaw State. We're saying no to assigning it there, but to put it as an attached agency that you'll see again here in just a second. 41.16.9, that line also corresponds with 41.18.11. We're just saying no in the transfer of those funds out of teaching into central office. We couldn't find where there were any savings or benefits by doing that transaction, so we're saying no to it. And you'll see that again in the Technical College System of Georgia as well. You'll see the flip side of that coin at 41.18.11. And moving on down to the Commission on the Holocaust at 4121.1 is a recognition of it being an attached agency now. Then under Georgia Military College, just a transfer at 4122.6 over to 4123.4 to put it in the right program as it relates to cameras and security at the institution. And then a recognition at 41.22.7 of some liability that they have as it relates to the teacher retirement system. Department of Revenue, look over at 42.8.6. First change there. Restoring 5 revenue agents and 2 auditor positions there. And at 42.8.9, maintaining 6 of the contractors there as it relates to data mining and recouping of funds owed to the state of Georgia from fraudulent filings and otherwise. Section 43, Secretary of State, change at 43.8.1 is the change you'll see there. That's the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission, just a true up of the funds there necessary to get it up and rolling. Under Section 44, Student Finance, a true up of the numbers at 44.2.1 dealing with dual enrollment, true up of the numbers at 44.9.1 of Hope Scholarships, and then the recognition of the continued growth and success of the Reach Georgia Scholarship programs with the addition of $2 million added there so that more local communities will be able to participate in that program. As I said yesterday, if your school system and you yourself are not a participant in helping do the local match, shame on you. If your school system is not a participant, shame on them. That is one of the most impactful programs that I've seen in this state in a very long time. Section 45, Teacher Retirement System, no changes. Section 46, the Technical College System of Georgia. If you'll go down to 46.2.12, as it relates to the same type change that was mentioned over in the Board of Regents a while ago, we're saying no to that transfer. Then the next change will be over at 46.6.9, or the flip side of that transaction is 46.68, but 6.9, some additional funds for the Rural Technical Worker Pilot Project. And one of our Representative Joneses, we have 2 of those, but Representative Todd Jones has been working very diligently with the Technology Association of Georgia on putting some of these technology jobs out in rural Georgia. And so this is what this is working toward, is to make sure that the training is in place so that those rural areas can supply the pipeline needed for those jobs. Section 47, Department of Transportation. 47.1.2, the recognition of House Bill 170 funds that had been proposed to be used under the Motor Carrier Compliance Division, and checking with the letter and the feeling of the law, House Bill 170 does not allow for those funds to be used that way, so we're saying continue to use state funds under motor carrier compliance, put the additional funds back in here for construction. 47.2.1, the reduction and recognition of what actuals there, and to balance motor fuel funds across the admin programs. And then at 47.2.2, you'll see the $500,000 that was proposed for Sapelo being used there, actually put in there for capital maintenance. Under construction admin at 47.3.2, at 47.42, 4.2, 5.2, 9.2, 10.2, and 11.2, you'll recognize the spread of the merit-based pay adjustments from last year actually being annualized into this year. Then the next change is at 47.12.3, the reduction of $10 million in existing funds that are being used to help cover those pay raises throughout the Department of Transportation as well. Section 48, Department of Veterans Services, the statewide changes are all that you have there, except for at 48.4.5, you'll see another targeted increase, a 36% turnover rate for these field staff. And so we're coming in and saying for these 111 officers that we do an additional pay bump there on top of the 2% statewide change. Then Section 49, winding down, Section 49, State Board of Workmen's Comp, you'll see the statewide changes as well. So that completes the walkthrough of the tracking document. I want to make a few more comments. I would say as a Baptist preacher, and in conclusion, but we all know, us good Baptists know what that means, absolutely nothing. When the preacher said, some of you are still awake. Some of you are already in a varsity hot dog coma, so bless your hearts. But thank you for staying with me throughout the walkthrough of this document. It's taken quite a bit of time, actually a little bit less than I thought it would, but I'm sure we're going to have questions. I'm sure we're going to have folks that want to comment and make points about it, and that's fine. That's part of this process. There may be more changes in this document than any budget that you've ever seen. There's certainly more changes in this document than any budget that I've ever seen. But there are a few points that I want to roll back to as we get ready and prepare to vote. This budget reflects the intent and the fully funding of every special purpose fee that's ever been passed by this General Assembly, including fully funding Joshua's Law for driver's education, Super Speeder for Trauma Network, Solid Waste and Hazardous Waste Trust Funds for environmental cleanups, lifetime sportsman licenses, and 1 year of the Outdoor Stewardship Act for parks, trails, and conservation. But most especially, the House version of this bill insists on the integrity of the fees that were passed when we passed House Bill 170 in 2015, which creates over $1 billion additional dollars going to transportation and our infrastructure as it relates to roads and bridges. Your Public Safety Subcommittee made changes to ensure that its citizens in every county will have safe access to a public defender, and the momentum of the criminal justice reform can continue with the full funding of juvenile justice incentive grants and accountability courts. The $2.1 million restoration for these courts represents $16.4 million in cost avoidance and a 75% rehabilitation rates for its participants. The subcommittee reworked the reductions and added funding for GBI scientists and labs, which are an integral part in clearing rape kit backlogs and other forensic evidence for speedy and fair trials. And for those who must be incarcerated, addressing the state employees' 95% turnover rate in our juvenile facilities and 42% turnover rate in adult prisons is a deliberate step to provide greater stability for our inmates at a lower cost by abating overtime and duplicated training expenses. Everyday safety of all of our citizens is important, and the Economic Development Subcommittee's recommendation to maintain $1 million in funding to guarantee the funding for the adequate number of food safety inspectors in the Department of Agriculture, we're better able to make sure that the food we eat is sanitary and that the businesses that sell our food and fuel are hygienic and regulated. The consumer protection goes one step further in the House version of 793 with the restoration of $5.4 million for county health departments, the boots on the ground, those responsible for regularly giving restaurant inspections. Those funds also help public health departments protect us through emergency preparedness and disease prevention. As we keep a watchful eye on coronavirus, it is worth noting that county health departments are the primary health care provider for our neighbors in 8 rural counties without a physician, and the only support in 9 additional counties where there's only 1 physician. The need for health care providers, namely physicians, cannot be understated, and our health subcommittee has invested years in building the educational and training infrastructure to meet that demand. The investment is reinforced by keeping $4.8 million within the medical education pipeline that we have created with our partners across the state: Morehouse, Mercer, Emory, PCOM, and our own Augusta University. It is a multi-pronged effort, and $10 million in grants to rural hospital stabilization grants ensure that training can continue to occur in different settings around the state. And when you cast your vote today, remember that we have addressed one very specific area of need: maternal mortality. $19.7 million, when matched with federal funding, becomes $59.7 million. In conjunction with Chair Lady Cooper's bill, we're expressing our commitment to provide adequate resources to overturn the roughly 60% of senseless and preventable pregnancy-related deaths in our state each year. Behavioral health has been a headline issue in our state for a decade as well. We've had tremendous leadership from the executive branch and our own Human Services Subcommittee in building infrastructure and providing meaningful programming. This momentum must be maintained because we're already operating at maximum capacity and the demand just grows more and more every day. When you vote, remember the addition of over $30 million for core behavioral health treatment, which includes 95 crisis beds across this state and the 5,000 people who will need to use them in this coming year. 44 new beds in residential treatment of addiction and 2 crisis homes for children. We care for over 10,000 children in our foster care system, and the very least we can do for those children is provide a steady guide to advocate for them and protect them and to help them navigate the significant challenges that they face. That is why caseworker turnover has to be addressed and why our members propose $2.4 million in salary increases to give our 1,897 caseworkers this significant step to improve the 36% turnover rate and to lower the caseload over time. And finally, to each and every one of our 32,216 certified teachers and educational personnel, we support your efforts and recognize the incredible service that you give to our state and especially our children. Although the governor set an expectation of $2,000 raise to the base salary to be funded in this coming year, the House had to balance within the needs of our other state agencies and employees in our state. As a Georgia taxpayer, this means we're looking out for you outside the classroom as well. This $1,000 increase, an increase of 2% above the base salary, on top of the $3,000 increase last year, is an 11.7% raise in the last 2 years. And I'm certain that the final $1,000 increase will be widely supported next year. In addition, we also acknowledge and hear your request for additional supports you need, and the $24.8 million for school counselors will provide much needed assistance to you and your students and make your classroom a place where behavior management is not an issue, but teaching can be done uninterrupted. Members of the House, education is clearly our #1 priority. Our teachers are the highest paid in the Southeast. K-12 education remains the largest single expenditure in the state budget, totaling $10.7 billion, or 44.3% of state general funds. And the Quality Basic Education QBE formula will now be funded 3 years in a row, providing local school systems and teachers with the resources necessary to educate children in our Georgia schools. For that, and for the painstakingly comprehensive and cohesive efforts of the members of the House Appropriations Committee, I repeat what I stated in the beginning of this presentation. I am proud of this bill. I'm proud of this bill because it incorporates the feedback from rural and urban, Democrats and Republicans, small government advocates and advocates for services. This bill reflects that we did our job of providing the checks and balances as a legislative institution more than any other budget that I have had the privilege of working on. This is the common denominator we share as House members, and it shows in the thoughtful allocation of dollars and your vote of support for House Bill 793. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if you're still awake back there, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I've been on the edge of my seat for about an hour and a half now, but what can I say?
I'm glad you didn't fall off it and hurt your other arm.
There you go. Be a two-arm bandit then. Mr. Chairman, I can only thank you for your work personally and for your subcommittee chairs on this budget. And as I look to your left and your right on the front in those seats, I can see the incredible pride that the staff has taken in this budget. And most of the times they shook their heads. You were saying things correctly. I saw a couple of nods there, but a couple of times I was in
There was a while.
But thank you. Yes, I had lots of questions before we started your presentation, but you answered every one that I had, so thank you for
Okay.
that.
Good.
But there are a couple of questions from the members, if you'll be willing to take those.
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to take a few.
At this time, the chair recognizes Representative Bruce to your right.
Will a gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
And I know it's in here, I just can't find it. You know, the whole tax cut piece, is that in here?
No, sir. That will not be recognized in this document.
Okay.
That's actually a measure and an opportunity or function of the revenue estimate.
Right, I didn't know if it was reflected in here. That's
No,
what
sir.
I was trying to
No,
get
sir.
at.
And we don't feel a need to because of many of the other things that this body has done and the Senate as well.
Okay.
From Marketplace Facilitator and from our work on, and Chairman Knight and others' work on pharmacy benefit manager legislation that we've been working on, feel like that we more than adequately are going to have the room that we need.
Okay. And one last thing, the money for, is there any money in here anywhere to address what we are currently dealing with in terms of this virus? I didn't see that.
Nothing specifically. However, if you'll go back to my comments that I made about the restoration of funding for our county public health departments and public health in general, that will actually, by lessening those cuts, allow them to address any needs that they may have. Now, we've also been in discussion with Dr. Toomey, the director of the Department of Public Health, and she has told us at this point in time she doesn't see the need for additional state dollars because they already build emergency preparedness within their budget as it is. Whether it's flu or coronavirus or anything else, there would be an outbreak. And she is very confident that the federal dollars that have been approved will be addressing any of those additional needs that there may be.
Mr. Chairman, another question. Gentleman from the 33rd, Chairman McCall, to your right. Your
Thank
seat,
you,
mate.
Gentleman yield.
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that this is my last one of these things I got to sit through? And I kept up, probably one of the 3 or 4 people in here that kept up with you line by line. And I want to make sure that I tell you and the staff, thank you for this budget because it's a good one.
Thank you.
And I got a couple of questions about the largest industry in the state, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned the education of the urban kids, and you talked about the milk cow and the hamburger. Well, the milk cow was involved, but the hamburger cow was totally committed.
It was committed.
To,
Kind of like chicken and bacon, or egg and bacon.
That's right. To giving us what we eat. And is it not true that we put around $400,000 back in the agriculture department budget to ensure that the citizens of Georgia, when they sit down to eat the hamburger or drink the milk, that they have no worries at all about food safety?
Absolutely, and actually closer to $1 million by the time you take into account the targeted pay raises for those inspectors as well.
And that's an important part, that the citizens don't have to worry about their food supply.
Exactly. We live in the nation that has the safest, most abundant, and lowest cost food supply in the world. And it's done because we have a bunch of folks across the state that are deeply committed to making sure that we're producing a crop and marketing a crop that's safe and affordable. And then we have folks at the Department of Ag and the university system and others that help make sure that we're doing that in a way that's the best on the environment and the safest for the consumer.
And one more question, if you'll let me.
Yes, sir.
Under the Board of Regents, under Extension and Research, is it not true that if it wasn't for the commitment of Extension and Research, and especially the farmers in southwest Georgia, that if we hadn't over the years done irrigation efficiency and they spent all that money on the irrigation systems, that Florida would have whipped us in the water wars, and that Extension and Research and those ag producers down there saved the whole state of Georgia from an embarrassment from Florida lawsuit?
Absolutely. The College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences Stripling, I can't even talk now, you done got me tongue-tied. Stripling Irrigation Research Farm has been priceless in helping us figure out a better way to use our water. We have more irrigated acres today than we've had ever in the existence of the state of Georgia. And I don't know, I can't say this as a fact, but we may use as much as we've ever used in general before we started putting in the water-saving devices, but have added additional acres. I would actually tell you that probably our per acre use and maybe overall consumptive use is actually lower than it was before any of those practices have been put into place.
That's correct, and all of those zeros and smaller numbers inside the parentheses on the House version under extension and research is very important, and thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate the gentleman sharing their conversation that occurs between seatmates, but that was very informative. Thank you. To your extreme right, Mr. Chairman, the gentleman from the 6th, Representative Ridley, has a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Maybe.
I'll take it easy on you. Is it not true that this budget reflects not only the governor's priorities, but also the priorities of this House as an independent body?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I mean, you know, we go through the document and we talk about the changes. We don't necessarily always highlight those things that we're agreeing on. And of course, the work on the gang task force and sex trafficking, all of those things that the governor and the first lady are so near and dear to their hearts and making sure we're doing. We've agreed to all of those things. It's a lot of other stuff that are priorities of the House that we've gone in and made additions to or changes to as well. So yes, it represents an awful lot of agreements with the governor's priorities.
All right. And thank you. I appreciate your work, and I know you're going to do it later, but you got one of the best staffs I've ever seen. And enjoy working with.
Amen.
Mr. Chairman, now we'll recognize a gentleman from the 143rd, Representative Beverly, to your front for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentleman, you?
Yes, sir.
I just have a couple questions. Number one, does the budget contemplate placing money into the Medicaid waiver program?
It does on the maternal mortality piece, yes, sir.
But not for the waiver as it's written?
Not
currently?
yet, because that will depend on the federal decision, and then we will address that more than likely when we come back next January.
Okay. Gentleman, further you?
Yes, sir.
Last year, the anticipated revenue growth for the budget was approximately, do you remember what that percentage was?
3.53, almost 4%.
And what was it actually? What we anticipated 3.5, but what did it turn out to be?
3.2, 3.3, somewhere thereabouts.
Okay, I thought it was more around 0.6%, that we had a revenue shortfall, not what we anticipated. No. This budget contemplates, if the gentleman further yields, does it contemplate what type of revenue growth do we anticipate?
About 2%.
About 2%, thank you.
Yes, sir.
To your extreme left, the gentleman from 158th, Representative Parrish, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions for you, please, sir. Isn't it true, Mr. Chairman, in this budget that we have added items that have helped to address some critical needs such as maternal mortality, assistance to our rural hospitals, and we've added funds in our graduate medical education program to help us increase the number of doctors and healthcare workers in this state so that our communities in our rural areas and the urban areas will continue to thrive.
I will tell you that the gentleman asking the question knows better than anyone in this House that is true.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that I want to thank you for restoring funds to these programs that were reduced, that this House had put priorities on over the last several years in an effort to build up these programs that we were just talking about so that all Georgians would have access to quality health care around this state, and that our families and communities can continue to have a good quality of life?
Yes, sir. It's been a team effort for sure.
Thank you.
To your left again, Representative Hogan from District 179.
Thank you. Gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for what you've done and your staff in this budget. It's been the most comprehensive budget that I remember. And I'd also like to, I think I remember you saying something about $200,000 from marine biologists
yes,
to
sir.
move oyster farming forward. So
Yeah.
I appreciate
Yes, sir.
that very much down on the coast. And it'll mean a lot for the state of Georgia. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, I'll take a couple more if there are, and then I'm going to retire to my seat and allow us to take a vote. The hour's getting a little bit late, and I know there's probably some that wish to speak on the budget, so I don't want to take up all of their time.
You're a wise man. I'm going to pick and choose a couple here, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. But I'd like to recognize this gentleman for a question from the 110th District. Chairman Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, do you yield?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that this budget strikes the proper balance between, in our justice system, preserving the rights of those that need criminal defense, balancing also the need for us to have a well-founded and well-established prosecutorial pool of attorneys?
Yes, sir. And you and your subcommittee for the last several years have done an outstanding job in making sure that that balance is in place.
Does the gentleman for the year?
Yes, sir.
Does this budget also preserve and not backtrack from the accountability courts and preserving the grants that we have anticipated, also looking at juvenile justice grants as well, so that our local governments can continue to provide the services and defer those individuals that may still be able to be with their families, pay taxes, maintain their jobs without being shunned into our criminal justice system before that's necessary?
Absolutely.
Does further yield?
Are you cross-examining me or?
No.
I know we only get this last time, so yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. One last question. Is it not true that through your leadership and the empowerment that you've provided me as a subcommittee chairman and the members of my subcommittee, as well as the leadership and tireless hours of work that your staff, our House Budget Research Office, has put into this budget, is it not true, sir, that I'm deeply honored and grateful for all of their work and all of your leadership, and it's been my pleasure to serve with you as your subcommittee chairman?
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you as a subcommittee chairman. And I don't know about my leadership. Sometimes I feel like a guy out taking a dog for a walk, just hanging on to the leash at a run. Sometimes you kind of lead from behind, and that's what I try to do. And I'm incredibly fortunate to have the 8 of you that serve as our subcommittee chairs, our vice chairman, and our secretary of our committee that consistently and have constantly had my back and the backs of our staff. And we're certainly incredibly blessed to have the staff that we do. As I said yesterday morning, I'll put them up against any budget staff in the 50 states, or for that matter, in any country in the world, because they're some of the hardest working, most tenacious young people that I've ever known. Thank you.
One last question, Mr. Chairman, and then we can move on. But I would represent the lady from the 13th, Chairman Dempsey, for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Absolutely.
While there have been lots of accolades, and we could all stand here and do that repeatedly, there will never be enough words to really say about this budget. It was a process that none of us, I think, expected or knew exactly how to face. But I think each and every member in here has so much to take home, to go back into our districts and to be grateful for, to talk about, and to be proud of the work that we as a House have done. Is that not true?
Absolutely.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
And I think specifically, much of the work in behavioral health, developmental disabilities, addiction, our foster care, our veterans, when you look at the funding that went there, the dollars that went across those agencies to actually work to meet the needs of some of our most vulnerable Georgians is so very, very important. Does the gentleman agree?
Yes, ma'am, I certainly do.
And one more thing. If this budget does not directly impact each of you sitting here and privileged to be here, I would just say, look around. Think about your neighbors, your family members, your friends. People across our Georgia will truly benefit from this at this time. Is that not true?
Very well said.
Thank
Very
you.
well said. Mr. Chairman, I will yield the well and ask that our members support and vote for the committee sub of House Bill 793 as we move forward. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Chairman, as you leave the well, I want to thank you for having a very sharp intellect when it comes to fiscal policy. Thank you for that, but even more so, thank you for your temperament and your tempered work on this and our budgets, tempered by compassion and a servant's heart. Thank you. chair now would recognize the gentleman for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that this House pass House Bill 793 as a committee substitute.
Gentleman has moved that this House pass Bill 793 by committee substitute. Do I hear a second? Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 33rd, Chairman McCall, for a motion.
Yes, sir, I'd be happy to second the motion.
Representative McCall has seconded the motion. At this time, the question on House Bill, at this time we'll call the question on House Bill 793. All in favor of House Bill 793 will say yes. I'm glad you're paying attention. All opposed will say no. It's clear that the yeses have it, and House Bill 793 passes by committee substitute. And the chair recognizes the gentleman from the 116th, Chairman England.
As chairman of the Committee of the Whole House, you are instructed to report the action of the Committee of the Whole House to the House.
The chair recognizes Majority Leader Burns.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 793 and has instructed me as its chairman to report the same back to the House with the recommendation that House Bill 793 do pass by committee substitute.
The report of the chairman of the Committee of the Whole House is received. The Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 793 and has reported the same back to the House with the recommendation that House Bill 793 do pass by committee substitute. The Committee of the Whole House is hereby dissolved. For what purpose does the Majority Leader of the House rise?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognize and make a motion.
State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we table House Bill 793.
The Majority Leader has moved that House Bill 793 be placed on the table. For what purpose does the Majority Caucus Whip rise?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to second the motion that we table House Bill 793.
The Majority Caucus Whip has seconded the motion. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, it is put on the table. Chair recognizes the chairman of the House Rules Committee for an announcement.
Rules will meet at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, don't be late. Thank you.
House Rules Committee will be meeting at 2 p.m. This House will be in recess for lunch until 2:15.